Good morning, everybody, and I want to thank you all very much for joining us for this OMVIC/UCDA webinar on advertising. And I'm very happy to be joined. Oh, by the way, my name's Terry O'Keefe. I'm going to be the moderator today. I'm really happy to be joined, though, by our presenters, Bob Pierce, the Director of Member Services and instructor of the UNtitled certification course at the UCDA. Welcome, Bob.
Good morning, Terry. Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here again.
And Farah Mohammed, our Senior Education Officer here at UNtitled.
Good morning, everyone.
Just before we begin the webinar, I just want to take care of one little bit of business. If you should have any questions as we go along, here's the instructions on how you can type those questions in. And what we're going to do is when we're finished the webinar, we'll take 10 minutes or so and try and answer these questions. And if there's any question that we don't get to, we'll be forwarding that question on to the business standards team. Those are our advertising experts here at OMVIC, and they will respond to you with the answer. I'll turn things now over to Farah and Bob.
Alrighty, so let's jump right into it. Advertisements, what are they? An advertisement is an inducement to buy or lease, in this case, a motor vehicle. And advertisements can come in many different shapes and forms.
Yeah, and I'll take this one, Farah, because I think it's important that we understand that advertising is everything now. In the old days, which I'll refer to a couple of times, I guess, because I'm probably the oldest dog in the kennel, it was only advertising that went external at the dealership, but now it's everything. And I think we have to pay attention to some things like, obviously, newspaper and magazines and websites and things, but signage around the dealership as well is now included. So people are shopping and looking at cars, and I notice a lot of that probably is some of the problem. And then all social media that has to have it on it.
And when you talk about signage at the dealership, Bob, you're talking about even the danglers from the rearview mirror.
And again, that's new, and under what I call the new regulations that are now 7 years old.
Okay. You know. And it's very important that when you are advertising any price for a motor vehicle, your dealer name and contact information is prominently displayed in the advertisement. So for those of you who are familiar with Kijiji or utilize Kijiji for your advertising, you'll notice that it gives you the option to advertise as a private individual or an owner or a dealer. And for all of us dealers, we know that you have to pay your dues to Kijiji, and in order for it to say for sale by dealer. So you want to make sure that if you're advertising on online classifications, you are disclosing the fact that you are a dealer in the body of the advertisement. Provide your dealer name and your contact information as it is registered with OMVIC.
And one of the things I think we take a look at in advertising now is the requirements for the history of vehicles, and this is one that I think, Terry and Farah, is a success story in our industry as far as advertising goes. I think the industry is far more aware of things like this. So the sale of taxis and police cars never has really changed and is not an issue in this industry. But if there are businesses that buy and sell these vehicles, then they clearly have to be identified, and I think that's reasonable more. But again, I think the industry has changed enough in the last 10 years that this stuff is really not an issue.
I think you're right, Bob. I think there are some areas of advertising that are not problematic.
All right.
And I think there are other areas, as you and I have talked about many times, where there are still concerns. And this next one, I think, is sometimes still a concern.
And that's clear and prominent history of the vehicle. This one's clearly a daily rental. And again, daily rental disclosure is another one I think has been a requirement since 1989. And again, it's nothing new about this stuff. And I think when we see things that are not clear and prominent in things like daily rental, I think it's just a careless mistake. And it's not something, because it's now so known that it's a requirement in the industry.
But we are still seeing non-compliance when it comes to daily rental non-disclosures and advertisements. I'd say aside from the all-in pricing violation, daily rental disclosures and ads would be the second to number one.
And I don't disagree, and I think it's mistakes, and we're going to talk a little bit about today it's not necessarily what we do in this industry, it's what we check. And I think this is one of the things that the industry and the managers in this industry need to check and look for things that they do deal in, and obviously daily rental still, after I don't know how many years that is, a problem.
If the vehicle was previously a used vehicle or is of the current or previous model year and is used, the advertisement must clearly and prominently identify it as a used vehicle. So I like to use demonstrators as an example. Everyone in the industry knows what a demonstrator vehicle is, but we need to know our audience, consumers. Consumers might not be aware of what a demonstrator is. They're looking at the vehicle's year when they're shopping. So if it is of the current or previous model year and you're advertising it and it is a used vehicle, you need to clearly and prominently state that it is used. So previously owned or previously used as.
And one thing to note on this stuff, the manufacturers in a lot of this case will still require this vehicle to be classified as new, and that's their standard. So it's important that if you're into this, you're selling this as a new demo, and it could be on a new car bill of sale. Not always on a used one.
Yeah, demos are often on a new car bill of sale.
But it's clearly on it, they have to be noted as a used demo.
Exactly. And even on the bill of sale, there's that tick box, right?
Exactly.
Bob, we got a pop quiz here. Why don't you walk them through it?
Well, again, it looks great. I like the truck, but there's nowhere on it that's clear and prominent. Now, it is in the bottom, but right by the price of it, $30,000, it doesn't say plus tax and licensing. And I don't know how big or small this ad might be, but clearly at the bottom, somebody wasn't paying attention where it says all-in pricing includes excludes administration fee, licensing, and taxes. Again, just saying administration, what does that mean? And again, it's not, I don't believe anything was done there. It's just carelessness. I don't believe it's a deliberate thing.
Yeah, but you're right. At the very last line, all pricing excludes, not includes, excludes administration. And so clearly this breaches the all-in price advertising regulations, which is where we're headed next.
All-in price advertising. It's simple. We've been preaching this for the past 7 years and continue to preach it. It's part of the reason we're here today discussing the advertising rules and regulations, because we're finding that the all-in pricing rule is still being violated to this day. So when you're advertising a vehicle with a price, that price must include all mandatory fees the dealer intends to collect from the consumer. So some examples of fees that you want to include in your advertised price are your freight, your inspection charges, so PDI or PDE, admin fees, any levies, so your air tax, tire stewardship fee for new vehicles, for example, your OMVIC fee. HST and licensing do not have to be included in the advertised price, but the advertisement must clearly and prominently state that HST and licensing are in addition to the price being advertised.
And if a dealer intends to charge for products and services that are pre-installed in the vehicle, and again, that's some things like nitrogen warranties or security, they also have to be included in that advertising price. And again, that's just checking to make sure that's done.
And all-in pricing, sometimes we hear all-in price, this is all about consumers, and it's actually not. All-in price advertising is meant to do two things: provide transparency to consumers, but it's also meant to create a level playing field for dealers. And so here's an example, and we're going to use Bob and Farah as our example. So both Bob and Farah went to the auction today, and they picked up a 2014 Mazda 3. They bought the same car. They're the same colors, same model, same trim level. They've even got similar mileage. And Bob and Farah both paid $8,500 for the car. Bob, he's in business. He's got to make a buck. That's what dealerships are in business to do. So he's going to advertise his car for $12,250. He's got to recondition it. He's got expenses, obviously, and he has to make a profit. So he's going to advertise that car he bought for $8,500 for $12,250. But Farah, she is going to advertise her car for $8,500, the same price she paid for it. Where are potential customers going to shop? When they see those two ads, they're likely going to go to Farah's dealership because she's nearly $4,000 cheaper. But here's the truth of the matter, and this is why the government introduced all-in pricing. And these are real numbers. We didn't make these up. These are real numbers from a dealership just before all-in price advertising was introduced. What Farah's ad didn't disclose was the fact that she charged a $1,500 admin fee, charged $750 for safety, even if the car required no repairs, charged a $1,500 pre-delivery expense, yes, on a used vehicle, and the total price of her car was $12,250. The exact same price Bob's advertising his car, but consumers didn't know that when they saw that price. That wasn't fair to the consumers, and it wasn't fair to Bob. And Bob, you and I have talked at great length about some of the most recent mystery shopping results where we've gone out and actually done some research looking for compliance with all-in pricing, and it's been quite disappointing.
Again, I looked at these yesterday, and it is, and I think there's an awful lot of still confusion on all-in pricing, and to me, I don't understand it because we've been doing this and talking about it for so long. Those numbers are a little disturbing. I think that there's an awful lot of what's happening in the industry is we're forced to change our pricing so often for the competitive nature that I'm not sure that the people on the floor, when your mystery shoppers walked in, that the communication between when prices are changed, that it necessarily gets to the floor. And I've talked to a number of dealers that have gone through the disciplinary process, and they highlighted in their own dealerships where that was the flaw. That somebody might over the weekend change some prices on cars, and they don't get it till their sales meeting. The salespeople don't get it till their meeting the next day or never, and they're still working off old sheets with pricing.
So a system or a process in place would likely eliminate a lot of this, you think?
It would, and better communication, I think, would have fixed a lot of those numbers.
And for those of you who are curious as to what some of the mystery shopping results have been, review our dealer standard publication. They are emailed to you, so if you do have an email address on file with OMVIC and you are a registrant, you will have our dealer standard publication, which is a quarterly publication, emailed to you as it is published. In December, we issued a mystery shop article in our dealer standard publication, which outlined that 75% of dealers shopped through a third-party shopping organization charged more than the prices advertised. Just recently, Kitchener, Guelph, Waterloo area were shopped, and 60% of those dealers visited tried to charge above the advertised price. And there is talks that in the GTA right now, stay tuned for our next dealer standard publication, 40 to 50% of dealers are charging above the all-in or the advertised prices. So you want to make sure that you're following this rule because non-compliance is still very much evident, and it's something that OMVIC is alerted to and we are keeping an eye on.
And for just one point on that too, and I think it's important that the folks listening understand that your enforcement now has come down to the people responsible for doing this. When the investigation is taking place, it's going to be those people that put this in the marketplace that are going to be named in the disciplinary process.
Yep. So
it's not just going to be the company or the owner of the company. It's going to be the people who signed the bill of sale.
Or the one who was responsible for placing the ad.
Exactly. So if you're going through the disciplinary process, and let's say there's a general sales manager that was signing off on these deals that are above the advertised price, any registrant with a registration number can be named as a party to the notice of complaint.
So Bob, this transparency and this level playing field is why the government introduced all-in pricing, but there is still some confusion.
What you called yesterday the elephant in the room.
Yes.
And that's the manufacturers that are exempt from the Motor Vehicle Dealers Act now going on, what, 10 years? 7, 9, 8 years?
Almost 8 years now.
Almost 8 years now. And we're still trying to get that reversed. And essentially their advertising, because it's national in some cases, is filled with a lot of disclosure, up to 500, 600, 700 words of disclosure on the bottom of the ads. And they're clearly not subject to the same rules the dealers are in Ontario.
And it causes frustration for dealers. You have consumers who are becoming educated about all-in pricing.
Exactly.
They've seen that ad in the paper, and they come in thinking they can buy the car for that price, and it's up to I'll say the poor dealer, and I mean that, to have to explain to that consumer, actually, you can't buy it for that price because there's all these extra fees, and the consumer says, but that's illegal, and now that dealer has to explain, that's not my ad.
That's right, and I think in the next slide, you'll see an example. One of the things that we have to be pretty careful of is, well, first off, the advertising agencies, it's not their fault. They're not going to be held responsible. The dealership is, and the people responsible are going to do it. But on the next one with the manufacturers, as we fight this, can you switch to the next one? Oh no, that's one.
We're going to get to that. Yeah.
We're going to get to the other one. Okay, that's fine. Thanks.
Yeah. So you just want to make sure that if you're getting a template, whether that template be from an advertising association, if you've got someone posting your advertisements on Kijiji, Auto Trader on behalf of the dealership, you pay into an advertising association, or you're getting a template from the manufacturer. You want to make sure that the prices that are being advertised by or on the dealer's behalf are compliant and they're reflective of the dealer's specific prices. Reason being is that sometimes you get a template from one of these organizations that you utilize and you think that you're getting a compliant template when it's a template. You want to make sure that you look at the fine print, make sure that the fine print isn't reflected of the manufacturer.
And that's what I was getting at. Yeah. I thought the slide had it's generally a new car dealer issue where they'll put their name, their dealership logos, and it's really the ad of the manufacturer, but they don't even have those disclosures. Even if they were to print the 700, no one's reading them anyway.
Exactly. So the body of the advertisement might be reflective of your dealer specific prices, but the fine print suggests that additional fees are applicable, which can get the dealership into some problems.
And that's on availability of those vehicles, and the vehicles must be available for sale at the time the advertisement's published. And there's some confusion on that now with I can buy them at the auction and things like that. Obviously, if the vehicle's not there or no longer available at the advertised price, then it could be just a bait and switch situation. You want them in the dealership and to reflect them to another one. If it's a factory order is required, this must be prominent disclosure in the advertising. If it's an incoming model, and we're seeing more and more of this compliant with, at least we used to when the American dollar was good, of vehicles where dealers buy them quickly in the U.S., take a picture, get them up on the site, but they say incoming vehicle or not available for a couple of weeks, but they want the picture of the ad there. And again, the word prominent disclosure has to be in the ad, or it has to be prominently disclosed in the ad. If the ad is for a limited supply of vehicles, and I guess this goes around daily rentals, you go and pick up 10 of them, and the price is the price. It might vary a little, but you have to let them know there's only 10 available at that price.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Exactly. So here's an example. Obviously, not all of these disclosures are going to apply in one particular advertisement, but if you've got a vehicle for sale with a price and there are only 3 available at the advertised price, your advertisement must clearly state 3 available at this advertised price. Again, if it's an incoming model, your advertisement must state that. And if a factory order is required, that too. So you want to make sure that you're transparent in when you're advertising vehicles that are not readily available to the consumer.
And in photographs of the car, it must accurately reflect the make, the model, trim level, model year, condition. And actually, this has been going on, and I'd like to say it's purely by accident, but it's not. So some of the vehicles pictured are the high end, and it's not that price model that's available. And we've seen that, and we work with our dealers a lot to fix that type of mistake in their advertising.
And I think the next slide, we actually have an example of that and of a dealer that has done it the right way.
Exactly. So this is what you want to do. If you're advertising a vehicle with a price, but you don't have an image to accurately reflect that vehicle model to the price that you're advertising. You've only got an image of a higher trim level, maybe a sports package, for example, but you want to advertise a base model price. You need to identify what the all-in price is of the image being displayed. Now that price doesn't have to be as prominent as, let's say, the base model price that you want to advertise, but it has to be there. And that's to avoid any bait and switch complaints from consumers, right? You see the image on the left starting from You don't want a consumer to think that they're going to get that vehicle in the advertisement for $19,995, right? You want the consumer to be aware that that image is almost $10,000 more than what the base model price is.
And the issue on that one I think is important is, and a lot of our dealers will call and ask, and I know they can call in and ask OMVIC for this as well. If you go back to the picture, the first question I ask our member when they call in is, do I get those rims on that car? For those folks.
Yeah,
exactly.
Or if the truck, and it's a truck, we find that a lot in trucks with step bumpers or luggage racks or the racks on them, or sunroofs and panoroofs, and using terms like that, the vehicle really has to reflect what they're buying at that price.
Exactly, and you just want to make sure that sometimes we do see vehicle not exactly as shown, or model may differ. That won't suffice. You need to have the all-in price of the image clearly displayed right underneath the image, but it doesn't have to be as
So
as
you're saying that starting price from in the 315 Chrysler 300Z is shown at $29,000. That tells me there's a $10,000 difference in the price of that car and the one you're getting.
Exactly, and that's clear, right?
Yeah,
but if you say just vehicle not exactly as shown, where's the price there to substantiate what you're going to get that image for? Which brings me to multiple prices. Sometimes we see dealers advertising multiple prices, you know, an internet price versus an e-price, or special incentives might apply to a specified group. So let's say recent graduates, or you've got a loyalty program available to those who currently own a truck, let's say. And you want to advertise a lesser price for those loyalty customers. That's okay. But the price available to everyone must be the most prominent price advertised, right? Because not everyone is a loyalty customer. Not everyone is going to be privy to that special pricing. Mm-hmm. So if you want to identify special pricing to a special group, let's say recent graduates or loyalty members, for example, you can advertise that price. But the price available to everyone must be more prominent, meaning the font size must be bigger than the price that you're advertising to that specified group of people. Right.
And she's right, but it feels like she's picking on us pickup truck owners, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. It really does. Cost of credit advertising, and I think this one again, we're getting it. I think because I don't see many of them that violate it. When you mention an interest rate in an ad. And of course that's what is to the customer. That's what they want to know: the interest rate, the monthly
what's
payment.
What's the payment? Tell me what the payment is. That's all I care about is what's the payment.
So you must show, but I think there's the top 5 things you must show in the ad, as prominent as the interest rate and the rest of it. And that the annual percentage rate must be displayed prominently. The length of the term, the cash price of the vehicle, the cost of borrowing. How much money does this 0% really mean, or 1.9% really mean? Lease advertising disclosure, again, one that it's a lease, because they're different. And the term, the payment, the annual percentage rate, upfront payment required, and a big one, and that's the how many kilometers, because that's big as a truck lease. That's an important number to know, and the cost if I go over that. So I understand that.
And how many consumers have you spoken to who have tried to trade in a vehicle and didn't even know they had actually leased it?
Not often.
It really happens.
Well, I also put a responsibility back on the consumer.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with you. I'm not suggesting that this is a dealer-only issue, but we actually hear from consumers who didn't it's that, how much is that monthly payment or that biweekly payment? They get focused on that. I can get into that car, and they don't even understand sometimes that it's a lease, not a purchase. And
you know, in a perfect world, I'd love people to sit down and say, can you clearly explain all of this to me? But as we know, I want to sign this, I want to sign that. Did I get financed? That's great. What's my interest rate? Am I getting that 0%? That's what I want. And away they go with the delivery. Extended warranties, again, another, if the ad states an extended warranty is included, and we always recommend there be some type of, even a minimal powertrain warranty sold on used cars, then it must clearly state prominently the term of the warranty and the claim limit. And I think on that one it's pretty good, because then you know for sure exactly how long I'm covered or what I can claim for, and we've seen a lot of them where they're just pretty short on delivery on the claim side.
And that's only if it's included in the advertised price. So if you're offering an extended warranty as an option for the purchaser, the term and maximum claim limits do not have to be prominently disclosed. This is only if it's included in the price that you're advertising.
And then as-is vehicles, which again is a 7 years in the making, 8 years in the making, still a lot of misunderstanding of as-is, the old days term and the new term as-is, which now is regulated prominently on bills of sale, so it's right there to see it. But in advertising, if you're selling a vehicle that meets the definition of as-is, and you can see it, it's sold as-is, it's unfit, not represented as being in roadworthy condition, mechanically sound. Does this sound like something you really want? Are you rebuilding this thing in your garage? What is it? But this must, in the ad, if you're looking for that kind of car, this wording must be word for word prominently in the ad.
Exactly. Simply just saying as is will not suffice.
And unfit. And this is another one that, again, the industry wanted some disclosure that would allow a dealer not to necessarily safety the vehicle on the lot yet until they know it's sold. And that doesn't say the car is unsafe. It just means they haven't done the inspection, and they may have looked at it to make sure the brakes, the tires are all pretty good, but they want to advertise it for a price and then say this vehicle's not drivable right now, not certified, and e-test is not an issue anymore. Certification, e-test available for $1 amount. And that suggests the dealer has to look over the car to know that he can certify the vehicle for $800 or $600. But that wording must be clear and prominent in the ad. And we are, and I said you were bringing up some of these issues of late model cars that are being advertised in this fashion.
Yeah, we have we've unfortunately seen some 1-year-old vehicles with less than 10,000 kilometers on them being advertised unfit. It appears to be an opportunity to try and circumvent some of the all-in pricing. But you're absolutely right. This was meant for those dealers who didn't want to certify the car. Right. They didn't know if they were going to wholesale it.
That's right.
They didn't know how long it was going to be on the lot.
Exactly.
And so that's lost on a small portion of our
percentage of the dealers want to get their advertising to come faster up on the websites.
Yeah.
And that means by price it's going to that posted price is going to come up closer to the top, and then the consumer has to read, and again some responsibility. If we make the dealers put this clear and prominent in bold, then there should be some responsibility for the consumer to read it.
Absolutely. But there's one dealer in this example on the right side of the screen here who really, that nuance was lost on them, Bob.
Yeah, I understand
As you can see, what they were writing in their ads was, as per ridiculous OMVIC regulations, we are forced to state the vehicle is not drivable when not certified and not e-tested.
I really suggest that people are listening, not get into this.
Yeah, I think that's listen to Bob.
This is a road you don't want to go down. I just think that. And I mean, this is a viable way to sell that car, the older vehicle that you haven't certified yet, and that's reasonable. Some of the games that are played, then I mean that's your job.
But you really want to make sure that you're not giving a price range. If multiple vehicles are being advertised as unfit, you don't want to say certification available from $800 to $1,200. It has to be specific to each individual vehicle that you're identifying as unfit. Okay, so we've talked about the advertising rules and regulations, and I'm sure this is a refresher for those of you who are listening here today. So now we're just going to go through some advertisements. Are these advertisements compliant? So I've just blown up an advertisement on the left to your right, and it's an advertisement for a credit offer. And it's a non-compliant advertisement because it's missing the APR, the term, and the cost of borrowing examples. So as Bob mentioned earlier, if you're advertising a vehicle, if you're financing or advertising a finance offer rather, you want to make sure that you're advertising the term, the APR, the payment, as well as the cash purchase price and the cost of borrowing. If more than one offer is being advertised, a representative example of the cost of borrowing will suffice in the fine print.
And again, are these ads compliant? We simply don't have enough time to read that most of the disclosure.
Yeah.
I don't even think I can.
But this is the slide that you and I were talking about earlier.
Yes.
This is where a dealer has taken the manufacturer's template
right.
and then used it as their own and gotten themselves into trouble.
That's right. Or some of the DAAs would also do, the dealer groups would get into this type of problem. And I think it really is a better education, a better communication out on this point. The car probably is $23,888, but we simply don't have time to figure out what really it's going to cost the consumer walking in. And again, we are all, OMVIC, the UCDA, the new car dealers, trying to get this manufacturer's issue fixed.
That's a really good point. Everyone is in agreement.
Yes, there's no question.
The UCDA, the other trades, OMVIC, even the consumer groups, the consumer advocacy groups for car buyers, everyone is in agreement. All in pricing works, and these advertising regulations work to improve the industry's reputation and transparency for consumers. But there's one.
It's not good for us if a consumer walks in with something like this and it's a $23,888 car, and then we have to explain it's not. And so the entire industry's on side with it.
Yeah.
Just it's that elephant in the room. The manufacturers don't want to do it.
And that's why we suggest make sure that you read the templates that you do get. Another one. This is actually a compliant advertisement. It clearly and prominently discloses that the vehicle was previously used as a daily rental in the body of the advertisement. So the disclosure wasn't buried in the fine print. It doesn't say previous DR, which those of us in the industry know what DR means and what it's short form for. I take my word for it. In one instance, when I was back on the road as an inspector, I had a dealer try to disclose that it was a previous daily rental on the bill of sale, and they just disclosed discount.
Yeah, and we've seen it, or just daily.
Yeah.
Daily is an industry term, that, I guess, and I would understand what that means. We all would in this room.
Yeah.
But
we need to know our audience, right? So previous daily rental in the body of the advertisement.
And then we take a look at disclosure requirements for credit again, the term, the APR, the cash price.
They got it right. They got it right.
Yeah. They got it, yeah.
This is a great example of how
as
to
I said,
get it all in.
It's prominent enough that even with our older eyes we can read this.
So what happens if you're not compliant with the advertising rules and regulations as per the Motor Vehicle Dealers Act? You need to be in compliance with Section 4 of our Code of Ethics. So not just the MVDA and the regulations, but the Code of Ethics as well, which is embedded in this piece of legislation. And the Code of Ethics is very clear in suggesting that dealers and salespeople must be clear and truthful in describing a vehicle, products, services, programs, and prices. Advertising must be legal, decent, ethical, and truthful. So if you've ever received a notice of discipline to suggest that the disciplinary process has been triggered and it's with relation to marketing, it's because you're in violation of this particular section of the Code of Ethics. Again, what can happen if you're not compliant? OMVIC can issue the dealer to cease use of the advertisement and issue a retraction, let's say if it's in a local publication, right? Because you can't really pull a publication off of someone's doorstep once it's been published and circulated, but we can order the dealer to issue a retraction in the following issue of that publication. And this is an example of a dealer who's had to go through that process and publish a correction in the next issue of the publication. And for those of you who are acquainted with print advertising, you know how expensive a full page print ad can be. So to have to take that spot from another person who's had it in the following publication and reissue a retraction, it can be very, very expensive. If not compliant, you could face charges, a discipline hearing, which we just briefly discussed, or a proposal to revoke or suspend dealership's registration as well.
And for just a point that we talked on before, and I think this is where you're going to see the shift in the enforcement by OMVIC down to the people responsible for doing this.
Yep.
It's not fair to show the dealership, the name and all that stuff when you know there's probably 1 or 2 people in the store that were responsible for that. And I think now when you go down the discipline that you do advertise, are required to put out for the public, you're going to see a different sort of, and that's having an effect. I think we're far more aware of the industry of what's going to happen in the discipline side, and I think some of the things we've seen here are extreme examples, not so much the daily rental maybe, which we still have a bit of a problem with, but I think we are getting better at this.
Yeah, and like I said at the beginning of this presentation, if you are a dealer or a salesperson, you hold an OMVIC license, you are subject to charges, a disciplinary hearing, or a proposal for revocation or suspension. So it's not just the dealership, like you said,
That's
Bob.
right.
It's not just the
Yeah.
dealer principal. It's anyone who holds an OMVIC license.
That's right.
Another thing that we want you to be aware of is that all discipline decisions, charges, convictions must be available on OMVIC's website. We must make this readily available to the public for the sake of consumer protection. Consumers need to know this information. So I've gotten in the past, when I've written some notices of complaints, I've gotten a call, you know, months after saying, well my name's on your website, Farah, can you take it down? Mm-hmm. To which I had to respond, unfortunately, I can't. We are mandated by the government to have to make this information public, just like you as dealers and salesperson have to comply with rules and regulations. OMVIC has to comply with rules and regulations as well.
And tonight now I get to talk about the best practices in the industry. So
but Bob, every time we have these chats, whether it's about advertising, whether it's about contracts, whether it's about the disclosure, mm-hmm. getting the odometers right on contracts, I know is one of your pet peeves. It's all about best practices, yes. systems, and processes.
And I think that's important. And again, you take a look at this dealer obviously sells these vehicles, and he understands the rules. So. And I think to the industry, we can't stand back and say we don't know this, so there's no opportunity to know this, because we've been talking about it for so long. There's this example of selling vehicles that are as is. If the customer wants one of these, he better be bringing a tow truck with him, because they can't be driven off the lot. They're going out on a hook or on a flatbed, or you can't put a dealer plate on these cars. And I think this dealer obviously got it right.
They absolutely. It's one of the best examples I've seen of how to do it right.
And prominently disclosing the past use of the vehicles, again, former daily rental, out of province, and naming the state or province. And again, that's again just a simple error that's being made on the appraisal processes, in the DMSs, and certainly on the bills of sale when these things are resold. Out of province is easy on a lot of our reports. The jurisdiction's a little more difficult to find sometimes, but you've got to note this thing did come out of Louisiana in 2005.
But that's just for the contract, right?
Yes, but in advertising, it's got to be there as well. But again, it's that whole process that's got to be followed. That's what I'm on.
Yeah.
In this particular example, the former daily rental on the list page is very important, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The dealer knew in this particular situation that they had the room to disclose daily rental on the list page, not just when the consumer clicks it and they have to read the description, right? Out of province from Nova Scotia, that's just the dealership doing their due diligence. They know it's from Nova Scotia. They know they're going to have to disclose this on the contract, so why not put it on the advertisement?
Yeah, they've gone above and beyond what the regulations require by putting it in the ad.
Exactly.
And again, as this comes out, and this out of province disclosure, or the 21 disclosures that you're required on
the contracts,
not just advertising, but on contracts, has to be part of the process in the dealership. Did you note it on the appraisal? If the car was sold wholesale or retail, did you make those notes so that the chain of information to the next dealer and then the next consumer stays and that chain isn't broken? So obviously you've got someone here who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Again, best practices, clear, prominent identification of the dealer's name in the contract. Stock photos are correct. It's the vehicle. What other discussion on this one?
No, I think that's exactly right. We've we've clipped the ad on the left. It did have the dealer's full name there,
Right.
which is exactly what's required. It's not they're not attempting to circumvent having to pay Kijiji their $14. That's exactly what we want to see.
And just some reminders now that we've gone into best practices. You can't guarantee trade-in allowances. We don't normally see that anymore. It's very rare that we'll get a complaint or see an advertisement where a dealer is guaranteeing a trade-in allowance. But just as a reminder, don't guarantee trade-in allowances in advertisements. For advertised savings, they can't be compared to MSRP. You want to compare your savings to the average selling price of the vehicle. And for used vehicle prices, we all know, never compare new to used because depreciation, right? As soon as you drive it off the lot, as soon as it's used, it starts depreciating in value. So don't compare used vehicle prices to MSRP. And for radio broadcasts, if you have limitations with time in your radio broadcast, which we all know for those of us who have dealt with radio broadcasts, you're limited to a 15-second to 30-second time slot. You can't get all of this information, all of this important mandatory information into your radio broadcast. Have a 24/7 reference for your audience to get that mandatory information. So visit www.abcmotors/specials for further information where someone can find that information out 24/7. And we've got multiple resources available to help dealers and salespeople comply with these rules and regulations. So our website is a very, very good and useful tool for dealers. So if you just type in onvic.on.ca, you'll be taken to the dealer homepage. Click on dealers, and it's going to take you to our landing page, which has quick links if you want to access registration forms, if you want to utilize our advertising toolkit. We've got information on our webinar, so if you have some staff today who missed out on listening to this webinar, we will have it posted on our website in the very near future, hopefully at the beginning of next week, and we will too.
And we have it on our site as well. And one little note is again, UCDA teaches the certification. One nice thing about all of these webinars, if you have people going through that you've hired, and they're taking the class, whether they're doing it on their own or they're attending it in class, it's all on these webinars, and it's like it's being taught to you before you go or write the test or you come to the class. So they're an excellent resource for new salespeople in training, getting ready for the certification program.
Yeah, very good as a study guide.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And there are webinars that Bob, you've done with us on advertising, on disclosure, on the Consumer Protection Act and Sales of Goods Act, on wholesale disclosure. A lot of good resources there.
Yeah.
But I like doing them over again because we'll catch a newer audience, newer people, and it's like anything. The more you hear it, the more it's going to stick.
And things pop up, right? We got new problematic trends that might come up, and we want to refresh our presentations as well. So our webinars are available on our website, and we've also got advertising assistance available on our website as well. So under NVDA requirements for advertising questions, you can send your advertising to us to review before you make it public. Give us at least 24 hours to 48 hours to review your ads in case there are any issues. But we do provide that services, so you want to contact our marketing standards department. Advertising education for dealers. We come out to the dealerships and present this information in person so that we can open that dialogue with the sales staff as well. So if you want to book a free webinar or seminar, that will be available to your dealership as well. And you know what? Unfortunately, non-compliance still exists, right? And it's frustrating the majority of the time for dealers. When we get complaints about advertising, it's dealerships that are complaining because they're the ones that are doing it properly and they're seeing a competitor not following the rules. It gets frustrating. You're losing business at the end of the day. So if you want to report non-compliance, you can do so anonymously to marketing_standards@onvic.on.ca. Okay, so utilize our website and the resources available to you. Our publications are all available on our website as well. So our dealer standard publications, our bulletins. Recently, OMVIC has issued multiple bulletins because there's important information that you as dealers need to be aware of. So we're not just, you know, posting this information for the fun of it. It's important information for you, and it's all archived on our website.
Yes, and we'll all thank Terry for the picture he snapped at my office. And yes, you know, UCDA has taken over the education, but we still do, and I will go up to dealerships, and there's Warren and Jim in the office, and we can take the calls as well. If they don't feel comfortable calling off for that information, we review a lot of advertising. Mm-hmm. But I think this really falls down to a point I want to make. This falls on to the managers who need to check what's being done by the salespeople, the business managers who prepare the paperwork. We know it's end of month. We know it's busy. I understand all of that, but you're signing a contract that says this is a good deal, and you have to take that extra minute and check the advertising to make sure you're not over the advertised price. And I think this, Terry, I think this really falls squarely on the managers in this industry.
The vast majority of time it does.
It does, and I think that's what we're going to try and teach and get that message out over the next little while, that we need to fix this problem before OMVIC gets there.
And isn't that the preference for everybody?
Exactly.
And something, Bob, that you and I have talked about too, the UCDA does deliver the in-class version of the OMVIC certification course, and you actually are quite prepared to go out to a store who's got X number of staff or managers who have not taken the certification course, who took the previous version, and deliver the course right there in the store for them. And
there still is a significant number of people out there that took the course a while ago and just haven't stayed up to date on it. And that's where these webinars and stuff can come in handy. Or yes, we'll come out and if there's 5, 6, 7, 10, we'd like that kind of number in the room, we can go through this with them.
And you want to make sure that you keep our contact information handy. So marketing_standards@omvic.on.ca. For any of your advertising questions, you want to email this department. They are our advertising experts. They live and breathe the advertising rules and regulations. So marketing_standards@omvic.on.ca, or you can call them toll free at 800-943-6002. Or if you just have any questions that aren't related to advertising, you can contact our complaints and inquiries department. Again, the same 800 number. Their direct extension is 3942. If you've got a good repertoire with your local area inspector, you can reach out to them as well. But like I said, our website is a great resource, and for any of your advertising needs, you want to contact Marketing Standards.
Well, we've come to the end of the time. We're having a slight problem with our software that we're running this webinar with. So far, we haven't had any questions pop up, and that surprises me. So I think it's the issue that we're having with our software. So if you do have a question related to advertising, please send it to marketing_standards@omvic.on.ca or to Bob, as you just saw his email address, and we will respond. We will get back to you with the answer to that question. So we've reached the end of our time. I want to thank Bob, I want to thank Farah, I want to thank the staff that are working behind the scenes to make the webinar public. And I want to thank everybody who's been listening for taking the time out this morning. It's very much appreciated. You should receive an email afterwards if you have any comments about the webinar, if you found it helpful or not. We'd love your feedback. And I just also to reiterate something that Bob and Farah both said. A recording of this webinar will be made available in the very near future. It'll be hosted on OMVIC's website and on Bob's website, the UCDA's website, and encourage you to share it with anyone who you think could benefit from this information but wasn't able to join us today.
And we are slowly getting some of the questions coming in. I did see one question pertaining to if you have questions after the fact, can you still contact us? You can contact us directly. On the bulletins that were issued, our contact information is available. You can send that to myself and I'll filter it through to the appropriate department. Or you can send your questions to marketing_standards@omvic.on.ca. We do apologize for the little technical glitch. As the questions are slowly coming in, we will document them, and it is associated to the email address that you registered with, so we will get to your questions right after the presentation.
So again, Bob, thank you very much.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Farah. That's always an interesting exchange back and forth with you, so I really enjoyed this. It's great.
Me too.
Thank you, Farah. Thank you, team. And thank everybody. Thank you for joining us.